On March 20th, 2026, a man named Mahalingam Balaji stood before the Supreme Court of India. He appeared in person to file a petition seeking the formal recognition of a very specific, very real phenomenon, what he calls Brahmophobia. Balaji defined Brahmophobia as the targeted hate speech, prejudice, and systematic vilification directed at the Brahmin community. Balaji's legal arguments were firmly rooted in the Indian Constitution. He argued that the state's willful negligence in monitoring and prosecuting hate speech against Brahmins violates Articles 14 and 15, which guarantee the right to equality and non-discrimination. He pointed out that there is a selective and arbitrary application of hate speech laws in India, where authorities essentially give a free pass to hate speech when the target is a Brahmin. Furthermore, he argued that the right to life and personal liberty guaranteed under Article 21 includes the right to live with human dignity and safety. By allowing the continuous dehumanization of Brahmins and ignoring explicit calls for their genocide, the state was failing its most elementary constitutional duty to protect its citizens. To help the court grasp the terrifying stakes of this issue, Balaji brought forward the 10 stages of genocide model. Originally formulated by Dr. Greg Stanton of the US Department of State, this framework maps the distinct, predictable sequence of events that lead to mass killings. The stages begin with classification and symbolization, creating an us versus them divide and mocking a group's cultural symbols. It then escalates into discrimination, dehumanization, organization, and polarization. The final, deadly stages are preparation, persecution, extermination, and lastly, denial. Balaji submitted evidence to argue that the Brahmin community in India is currently hovering dangerously at stages 6 and 7, polarization and preparation. The propaganda has isolated them, and there are explicit public calls for their eradication. But this isn't just a theoretical future. Balaji reminded the court that independent India has already crossed into extermination and denial. He cited the 1948 Maharashtra Brahmin genocide following the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, where Godse became a convenient hate symbol to violently attack Brahmins and burn their properties. He also cited the 1990 ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits, where systematic lists were drawn up and the community was forced into exile under the threat of death. So, how did the highest court in the land respond to this plea for constitutional protection? Did they invoke justice? Did they offer the shield of the law? No, they offered a philosophical lecture. Justice Nagaratna told the petitioner that preventing hate speech depends on education, intellectual development, tolerance, and patience. She stated that once everyone follows fraternity, automatically there will be no hate speech. The court was essentially telling a targeted community that the solution to their systemic persecution was to simply wait for the rest of society to magically become more brotherly and kind. The court then went a step further. Justice Nagaratna asked, why should a particular community come up and say, protect my community against hate speech? Rather, we should say, no one should indulge in hate speech. The Indian Supreme Court hears community-specific petitions every single day. They hear cases on atrocities against scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and religious minorities without ever demanding that the petitioners universalize their pain. Yet, when a Brahmin stood before them, suddenly the rules shifted and community-specific harm was rendered legally invisible. Ultimately, the court brushed off Balaji's concerns, told him to raise the issue before appropriate forums, and effectively forced him to withdraw his petition. When Balaji pointed out that these very same hate campaigns were also targeting the judiciary to destroy its credibility, the court simply dismissed the warning as uninformed attacks. To truly understand what the Supreme Court chose to ignore, we must step out of the courtroom and analyze how Brahmophobia operates in everyday culture, particularly within Dravidian politics. Although there are numerous news items that can be quoted to show how the phenomenon is very much alive, we will focus on a few examples of visual portrayal of Brahmins and their sacred symbols. A prime example is a recent cover of the Frontline magazine, which claimed to be discussing a debate over University Grants Commission regulations. A logical debate on policy would feature data, competing arguments, or images of university buildings. Instead, the magazine mutilated Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream. They overlaid it with a grotesque caricature of a stereotypical Brahmin, a frail, emaciated figure with a shaven head, a traditional tuft of hair, sacred ash, and a dhoti, letting out an exaggerated wail of distress. As the blogger Reality Check India shows, this image deliberately taps into a toxic Dravidian propaganda trope known in Tamil as Parpana Olam or Katharal, which translates to the Brahmin's wail. It is a psychological manipulation tactic designed to instantly dismiss any intellectual exposition, legal argument, or genuine concern from the Brahmin community as a massive overreaction. It equates their grievances to a child throwing a tantrum. The magazine also employed a brilliant but malicious dual-framing strategy. The caption on the cover read, "The anger of dominant castes." By using a plural abstract term, the publishers created a legal and rhetorical escape hatch. If confronted, they could claim they were making a broad structural critique of all oppressors. However, because of the visual superiority effect, the image tells the real story. The insiders know exactly who the target is, and the non-Brahmin castes are reassured that the attack is not directed at them. This visual dehumanization is not an isolated incident. It is an entire ecosystem. Social media is flooded with art and memes specifically designed to strip Brahmins of their humanity. One rampant tactic is animalistic dehumanization. For instance, a widely shared meme shows a picture of a pig with the caption, "Resemblance is uncanny." The pig is digitally painted with Vaishnavite forehead marks and a sacred thread. This isn't just an online phenomenon. Real-world political outfits have even staged protests explicitly titled, "The Festival of Making Pigs Wear the Sacred Thread." Another visual tactic is the total erasure of Brahmin poverty, ensuring they are only ever viewed as gluttonous oppressors. One popular meme titled, "Two Things That Do Not Exist," places an image of a mythical unicorn next to a drawing labeled, "Poor Brahmin." The drawing depicts a grotesquely obese, grinning Brahmin sitting cross-legged in front of a massive, overflowing feast of food. Perhaps the most disturbing visual strategy is the weaponization of their sacred identity markers. Cartoons frequently twist spiritual symbols into instruments of violence. In one drawing, a morbidly fat Brahmin is shown physically blocking an emaciated, dark-skinned man from accessing education. The Brahmin's traditional hair tuft is drawn as a venomous snake. Another caricature depicts an obese Brahmin sitting comfortably on a raised platform, pretending to be performing a ritual, but in fact, lecherously glancing at women having a bath in a pond. Many of these depictions mirror historical horrors. In fact, side-by-side comparisons reveal that Dravidianist book covers, such as the one for Arya Mayai, use the exact same aesthetic strategies, exaggerated, disembodied, sinister heads, as the infamous Nazi propaganda poster for the film The Eternal Jew. This hatred frequently spills over into real-world intimidation, with university walls defaced by blood-red graffiti screaming, "Brahmo Banyas, we are coming for you." #We will avenge. Why does this propaganda rely on grotesque cartoons instead of logical, fact-based arguments? The answer lies in the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre's theory of the criminal passion. According to this theory, propagandists intentionally delogicalize or de-reason a debate. They refuse to argue over provisions, data, or legal principles. Instead, they use identity ridicule to frame-shift the conversation, plucking the issue entirely out of the domain of reason and dragging it down into the plane of raw, unthinking passion and instinct. As Reality Check India notes, if you look closely at the caricature on that Frontline magazine cover, you will notice something incredibly revealing. There is not a single material symbol of power depicted. The Brahmin is not wearing a watch or jewelry. He is not standing next to a luxury car or a mansion, and he possesses no visible symbols of corporate, police, or state authority. He is just a frail man in a simple dhoti. The visual proves that the propaganda is not critiquing an actual powerful oligarch, a wealthy landlord, or structural socio-economic oppression. Instead, the hatred is entirely directed at a type of person. It is a blind, irrational animosity aimed at someone purely because of the community they were born into and the parents who brought them into the world. That is Sartrean criminal passion at its core. While the Supreme Court may have dismissed these concerns as the narrow grievances of a single community, Balaji concluded his petition by sounding an alarm that affects every single citizen. Brahmophobia is a dire national security threat. We live in an age of hybrid warfare where physical borders are no longer the only front lines. Foreign militaries and hostile state actors now actively use social media as an integral tool to destabilize enemy nations from the inside. They do this by identifying internal societal fault lines like race, ethnicity, or caste and aggressively exploiting them to encourage mistrust and tension. Balaji presented the court with terrifying evidence of this modern warfare. He highlighted a social media hashtag, Brahmins, the cancer of India, which was heavily pushed and shared by Pakistan-based handles. These venomous graphic images claimed that Brahmins control the entire country and act like a snake occupying all government seats. These campaigns are not organic. They are likely generated by individuals who are recruited, trained, and funded by hostile foreign powers expressly to incite caste wars in India. With the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence and deepfakes, technology can now be weaponized to deliver highly tailored, hyper-convincing fake narratives directly to specific groups. We have already seen how fake news and rumors circulated on platforms like WhatsApp can trigger real-world mob lynchings. Social media algorithms allow hostile rhetoric to reach massive audiences instantly, and as research shows, online dehumanization is a ticking time bomb that can rapidly escalate into offline, real-world genocide. When a targeted community is continuously dehumanized and foreign actors are actively fanning the flames of caste warfare, the state's silence is deafening. When the Supreme Court of a democratic nation tells a persecuted minority to wait for fraternity while denying them the protection of the law, the rule of law itself begins to collapse. Mahalingam Balaji's fight for the recognition of Brahmophobia isn't just about saving one community from the horrors of the past. It is about defending the integrity, security, and future of the entire nation.